Hello all. In this video, we are going to see more about a Google Compute Engine disk and a disk snapshot. So let's go to Google Compute Engine page and we'll perform a live demo on a GC disk and a disk snapshot. So first of all, I'll create one sample machine, the Linux machine. So when we say a disk, so disk consists of two types. One is a boot disk and another is a non-boot disk. So non-boot disk, we can say a data disk, and a boot disk is the disk which contains the OS of the machine. So I'll create new instance. So whenever we are creating the new instance, it will create a boot disk along with a OS image. So I'll create a first instance, suppose a test instance. I'll select a central one zone because I am already creating or created my VPC in US central one region, so I'll be using the same region. So now here you could see the boot disk, and each instance require a disk to boot from. Select an image or a snapshot to create a new boot disk. So here we can change OS image and a disk size, but for every VM instance we need a boot disk. So I'm keeping this as a default and I'm using the same boot disk, and I'm creating a VM. So once VM is creating, I'm going to log in the VM using my cloud shell. So it will ask me to authorize. Okay, so the instance is created, my instance is test. So I'm going to log in using gcloud compute SSH VM name zone. I'll give as a US Central 1 hyphen A. So it will log in into my VM. Okay, so I am logged in into my VM. I'll just use a sudo login. Okay, so I am inside my newly created VM. So let's see what are the disk attached to my VM. So if you go to a disk storage option in disk, so here you could see all the available disk in your project. So here you could see there are disk. So this is a boot disk. So boot disk will always have the same name as your VM, and it is attached to the test instance. This my capture is again a boot disk which is attached to my capture VM instance. This a test data is a data disk and is not attached to any of the instance. So for now I am just deleting these two disk because I am not using this. So if you go to VM and just check the file system, so here it will show a boot disk of size 9.7 GB, and there are no other additional data disk. So this suppose if I am using my application to run on a Linux system, then this 10 GB is a very less memory or like a less storage. So I want to add a more storage. So how I can add? So I can add additional disk to my Linux VM. So let's see how we can create additional disk and attach to our VM. So from disk I'll just create a disk, and I'll just give the name as a test data because I want this disk as a non-boot disk and I will be using this to store my data. Okay, and the region I will choose as US Central 1. So the disk and VM instance should be in a same zone to attach. If it is a single zone disk or if it is a regional zone, then we can give the replica zone. So I'm giving it as a regional, and I am creating a blank disk and size I'll keep it as a 20 GB. So currently I am not going to create any snapshot schedule, so I'll just disable. I'm going to explain more about a snapshot and snapshot schedule later. So I'll just create a disk, and once disk is created, we are going to attach this test data disk to our VM instance. Okay, so this test data is created. Now we'll see how we can attach this disk to our VM instance. So you can correlate it as your hard disk of your laptop. Like suppose your laptop is having 500 GB of a hard disk and it's like a full, then you can add additional hard disk to your laptop and you can remove that also, and you can then attach it to another laptop. So it's the same way we can use a disk as like a removable, we can say, a block storage. So now I want to attach the disk, newly created disk, to my test VM. So I'll go and I'll edit and I'll attach additional disk. So if you scroll down, you will see the option to attach additional disk. So here you have two options: add a new disk or attach existing. As we already created a disk, I will attach a existing disk. So here it will show all the disk available in zone 1 or in the zone where your VM instance is available. So now it will show a test data. So now here you could see there are a mode. So we want a disk to be in a read write mode or a read only. So if I am going to use for my data storage, I will be use is a read write, and here is a flag a keep disk, means like if we are deleting the VM, then we need to mention here we want the disk to be retained or we want to delete the disk. So we want the disk. I'll mentioning here as a keep disk and I'll click on a save. So I'll save the configuration of my VM. And so currently here you could see there is only one disk attached, that is dev sd a1, no other disk attached to VM. I'll just run ls block. Now here you could see this 20 GB disk is attached to my VM now, but if we run the file system, it will not show here because the disk is only attached and it's not yet mounted with our file system. So how we can mount? So there are set of commands we need to run to mount to our file system. So I'll just mount it. So first we need to format our disk. I'm just give my disk name here. These are steps you will find in Google documentation. Okay, now I'll just create one directory. It's called data and I'll mount my file system on that data directory. And my device name is SDB. Okay, now I'll run df-h. Yes, now you could see that 20 GB space is added with a data file system.